dark. Red and blue views, truth in the middle. No script, just thought raw and a little civil. Every question's got layers, so we peel back facts. From the real to the surreal, we don't hold back. Voices collide where ideas ignite. You tuned in, now step into the fight. This is more than talk, this is thought that counts. Welcome to the feed where the signal mounts.
Okay, imagine this. What if Europe is like right on the edge? The American protection they've always counted on is maybe fading, and Russia finds common ground with a familiar face from the U.S.
Wow, yeah. That's definitely high stakes. It sets a pretty dramatic scene.
Totally. And that's pretty much the core claim in this commentary we're going to, break down today.
It certainly grabs your attention, and it points to some maybe fundamental shifts people are seeing or think they're seeing globally.
Exactly. So we've got this recent online video. It's been making some waves. It shows European takes on the whole geopolitical situation right now. Ukraine, Russia, the U.S. role. And the main thing we're looking at is this French political analysis.
Yeah.
It was translated and shared on a YouTube live stream.
Okay, so it's not just the original French view, but how it got translated and then discussed online. It adds layers. Right?
Precisely. The YouTube host was translating it live from a Facebook video, and then a guest jumped in with their thoughts. So it's like a conversation about a conversation.
Which means we need to look at the French commentary itself, but also how that online crowd reacted to it, how they interpreted it.
Right. So our mission here in this deep dive is to pull out the key concerns, the potential implications of this transatlantic view for you, the listener, give you a window into worries that maybe aren't front and center in other places.
Sounds good. A different angle on things.
Okay, so let's get into this French commentary. The way they talk about the U.S. is, well, it's something.
Yeah, the language sounds pretty direct. Forceful, even. Not much ambiguity there.
No kidding. They talk about a weakening American shield, the whole security umbrella idea. Then they call Washington a court of clowns, an emperor bent on fire, run by buffoons on ketamine. I mean...
Oh, okay. That's
Hey, Brandon.
Incredibly strong language. It suggests more than just disagreement, doesn't it? Like deep disillusionment, maybe anger.
Yeah, it points to a real fundamental questioning of American competence, maybe leadership itself, from this particular viewpoint.
That visceral description really tells you the level of alarm, maybe frustration from this European perspective about the perceived state of U.S. politics.
And then it gets specific, targeting a former U.S. president. The commentary says their message is basically, don't bother being my ally, I won't defend you.
Oof. That's a blunt assessment of alliance politics.
It really is.
And it explicitly connects a perceived shift in U.S. policy under that specific leader to how fragile European alliances might feel now. Like those guarantees aren't guaranteed anymore.
Exactly. And the concerns keep building. Like this former president would supposedly hit allies harder with sanctions than enemies, maybe even threaten their land while cozying up to dictatorships.
It paints a picture of a completely upended international order, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Where American leadership isn't just unreliable, but maybe actively undermining allies and, emboldening rivals, favoring dictatorships over allies. That's a sharp reversal of how things traditionally worked.
There's also this reference, though it's a bit vague, to an alleged incident. That this former president kneeled in front of an enemy and basically accepted aggression towards an ally. They mention a moment with a European leader.
Right, and even without all the specifics, that image, a leader supposedly deferring to an adversary while an ally is under threat, it's a powerful symbol of, perceived abandonment, a shift in power.
The commentary keeps going, too. Claims this former president hurt the U.S. more in 1 month than in 4 years. Accusations about crushing the Constitution, controlling social media.
These are obviously huge claims about the health of U.S. democracy itself.
For sure.
And they reflect this deep worry, it seems, about U.S. internal stability and how that might ripple outwards, affecting its reliability on the world stage.
And here's where it really connects to Europe directly. The commentary claims the U.S., under this former leader, voted with Russia and North Korea against European interests on the departure of Russian troops.
Wait, voted with Russia and North Korea against Europeans?
On troops. That's the claim.
Yeah.
It wasn't super specific on the exact context, but the implication is massive.
Yeah.
A total break from the usual Western alignment on Russian aggression.
Yeah, that would be presented as concrete proof of the alliance weakening. Siding with rivals against traditional partners on European security itself, that's significant, if true, or even if that's just the perception.
And finally, in this pile-on of criticism, the commentary alleges the former president humiliated Ukraine's leader and stopped promised weapons deliveries.
Which ties directly into the war, obviously, and Europe's huge stake in it.
Right.
It portrays a situation where a key partner, Ukraine, fighting for survival, is being undermined by the U.S. It reinforces that whole sense of abandonment, shifting U.S. priorities.
So yeah, that's the critique of the U.S. side. So with all that laid out, what does this commentary then say about how Europe sees the Ukraine conflict itself?
Well, the core fear, as they put it, is pretty stark. It's basically, if Ukraine falls, Europe falls.
Wow. Just like that. Directly linked.
That's the message. Their fates are seen as totally intertwined in this conflict. It shows just how strategically vital they see Ukraine's survival. It's not just about Ukraine. It's a buffer for all of Europe.
They even call Ukraine Europe's army against Russia. That's quite a statement.
It really elevates Ukraine's fight, doesn't it? Positions them as the absolute front line, taking the hit for everyone else, protecting Europe from a direct fight. It highlights this perceived existential threat from Russia.
And the worry doesn't stop there. They mention concern for other countries like Georgia, maybe Moldova, places seen as in Russia's potential.
For influence.
Yeah, that phrase. The idea of powerful countries controlling their neighbors, like back in the Cold War, they fear a return to that.
It points to this broader anxiety about Russian revanchism, wanting to regain control over areas it once dominated. Those countries are seen as next if Russia succeeds in Ukraine.
And the alleged goal for Russia, according to this analysis, reestablishing a sphere of influence like in the Stalin era. That's a dark scenario for Eastern Europe.
Yeah, the memory of Soviet control is still very real there. So the idea of returning to that kind of setup where big powers decide the fate of smaller nations is a major, major concern.
And crucially, the commentary ties this back to the U.S. again, saying the former president's vision actually aligns with Russia's wish to redraw those lines, impacting Ukraine, the Baltics, all of Eastern Europe.
That's a critical link they're making. The fear isn't just about Russia's goals, but that a major player like the U.S. might, intentionally or not, actually help those goals along, undermining European security.
Okay, so let's pivot a bit. How does this commentary see Russia's actual strength? And what about Europe's response? Because interestingly, it seems to push back against some common narratives.
That's right. It argues Russia isn't this overwhelmingly powerful force some portrayed as. They say it's actually struggling.
Struggling how?
Pointing to the difficulties in Ukraine, high interest rates back home, falling reserves, even gold-backed ones they mention, and crashing demographics, basically underlying weaknesses.
So not an unstoppable juggernaut in this view. More like a nation under serious pressure, despite the aggression.
Exactly. And that assessment could, influence how Europe thinks about the long game, about whether Russia can sustain this and how effective Europe's own response could be.
The commentary then says the perceived shift in U.S. commitment, that wavering support is a huge strategic mistake. But maybe paradoxically, it's actually jolted Europe out of denial, shaken them awake to the threat.
Yeah, it suggests this perceived U.S. unreliability has kind of forced Europe to look in the mirror, confront its own vulnerabilities, and realize it needs to step up its own security game urgently.
And this wake-up call means Europe now feels it has to drastically ramp up military aid to Ukraine.
Fill the gap.
To make up for what the commentary calls American cowardice. Strong word again.
Yeah, they're not mincing words. The urgency to help Ukraine is framed as a direct result of not being able to count on U.S. backing anymore. Europe feels like it has to fill that security void.
So the commentary then calls for Europe to, get its act together. Put aside differences, spend way more on military standardized weapons system.
Right.
And even rethink nuclear deterrence. Probably talking about France and the UK's capabilities. Maybe needing a more European approach.
It sketches out this vision for a much more unified, militarily strong, strategically independent Europe, one that can handle its own security if the old transatlantic setup is weakening.
And then that really striking phrase again, Ukraine is now the first European army.
It really drives home how significant they see Ukraine's fight. Not just a national defense, but a vanguard protecting the whole continent.
And finally, this French analysis says for real, lasting military power, Europe needs to become an industrial powerhouse again.
Mm-hmm. Linked to manufacturing.
And needs a moral rearmament, too, to fight back against narratives of, giving up or appeasing Russia.
Yeah, the industrial part makes sense. Military strength needs a strong economic base. And moral rearmament sounds like needing to boost collective will, shared values, the resilience to stand up to aggression and defend democracy.
Okay, now let's shift to the YouTube live stream itself where this is all discussed. The host's first reaction sounds pretty intense.
Yeah, apparently one of shock. Warning viewers to prep for potential global conflict, that sets a serious mood.
Definitely. It shows how urgently that French commentary landed, prompting this immediate call for people to get ready for potentially worse things to come.
And the guests who joined, they agreed strongly.
Emphatically. Used some colorful language, shit's getting fucking real, echoed that sense of danger.
Yeah.
And their take was, Europe sees Ukraine as the front line, worries about Russian ambitions, mirroring concerns about the former U.S. president's approach to neighbors, and sees a future with maybe 3 big superpowers.
So that interpretation lines up with the themes of Russian expansion, a fragmenting world order, and Europe possibly caught in the middle between the U.S., Russia, China.
Seems like it. The stream discussion also got into what they saw as underlying forces, like greed, selfishness, the international banking system, maybe driving this instability.
So broadening the critique beyond just national politics to more systemic issues. Economic drivers.
Yeah, suggesting it's not just states, but maybe deeper economic and social forces contributing to the tension.
That's another layer, for sure.
The guest even referenced the art of war, saying the current situation fits its principles, and also connected it to alleged old Stalinist plans.
Interesting. Pulling in historical strategy and geopolitical ambitions to argue this isn't random, but part of a maybe longer pattern of power plays.
Right. And the stream ended with his call for unity to overcome nonsense. A bit vague, but heartfelt maybe.
Mm-hmm.
And the host said they got the commentary like breaking news and saw it as a good starting point for discussion, which is what we're doing now.
It definitely shows how this European viewpoint hit that online audience like critical info, needing immediate attention and debate.
Now, the YouTube video itself apparently went off on some tangents.
Oh, like what?
Well, there was a brief chat about personal transformation, how people don't fully control who they become. A bit philosophical.
Okay. Random, but maybe a parallel to the uncertainty in world politics. Or maybe just a conversational detour?
Could be. Then, totally shifting gears, a quick discussion of a local crime story, just to illustrate real-world chaos, apparently.
Weird juxtaposition, global geopolitics, and then local crime. Maybe trying to ground the big stuff in something tangible, but yeah, seems abrupt.
Then it veered into online drama. Accusations, threats between content creators.
The internet, doing internet things. A total contrast to the big picture stuff showing the kind of personal conflicts that happen online, too.
Right. And a big chunk was apparently about another online guy, Wes Watson. Efforts to expose alleged lies and bad behavior.
Okay, so diving deep into online accountability, scrutinizing someone's actions, shows a range of stuff people focus on online, from global threats to individual conduct.
Man, they got really weird. A woman claiming to be an alien and showing the reactions of news anchors and the streamers.
Wait, an alien? Seriously?
Apparently.
Yeah.
So, totally surreal. Touches on, I guess, how weird information circulates online and how perceptions of reality can get flexible.
That's definitely out there. It really highlights the theme of weird information and maybe shifting ideas of what's real online.
And that led into talk about predictive programming in movies, like The Fifth Wave, hidden threats, manipulated perceptions.
Looking for hidden meanings. Seeing if fiction predicts reality, that's a common trope in some online circles, trying to find patterns and connections.
Yeah. And finally, just brief mentions of past predictions about world events and how hard it is to know what's true online anyway.
Which brings us back to the challenge of sorting through all this information, right?
Yeah.
Separating analysis from speculation from, well, aliens.
Exactly. Okay, so let's try and wrap this up. To recap this deep dive, that French commentary voiced some really serious European worries about U.S. foreign policy, especially concerning Russia.
Right. Viewing Ukraine's fate as critical to Europe's own security.
And calling for Europe to seriously beef up its own defenses because they perceive the U.S. as, well, unreliable.
Mm-hmm. And the online reactions showed alarm, calls to prepare, but also these attempts to find broader patterns, sometimes venturing into pretty unconventional territory.
The key takeaways really are that perceived weakening of the transatlantic bond from a European view, that deep fear of Russian expansionism, and this growing push for Europe to stand more on its own militarily.
And the tangents just show the wild mix of information and interpretation you find online when these big events happen.
So here's something to chew on as we finish. How do these different viewpoints, Europe's urgent fears, the sometimes chaotic online reactions, shape your understanding of what's going on?
Yeah, what does it mean when you have serious geopolitical analysis competing for attention with, claims about aliens all in the same digital space?
It really pushes you to think about where you get your information, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And maybe how to sift through it all.
But definitely encourages seeking out multiple perspectives, thinking critically about what you see and hear.
Maybe reflecting on that idea of perceived realities versus underlying truths, something that came up in both the political talk and the stranger stuff. Anyway, thanks for joining us for this deep dive.
Mic check, one voice, one spark. From the shadows to the bright, let's light the dark. Red and blue views, truth in the middle, no script, just thought raw and a little civil. Every question's got layers, so we peel back facts. From the real to the surreal, we don't hold back. Voices collide where ideas ignite.